Family and fellow soldiers, I'm the Professor, and this is the Moment of Truth. There's an old saying in American politics that politicians are just actors who weren't pretty enough to be in movies. Ever since the advent of cinema, there's been a whole lot of individuals who apparently thought that they were going to make it big on the silver screen, but instead they had to apply their talents doing political theater instead. A whole lot of individuals, from Sonny Bono to Fred Thompson to Ronald Reagan to Donald Trump. That's the way it works. The problem with American politics isn't that Hollywood has become so politicized, as so many on the white right have claimed. The real problem is that these wannabe actors in Washington are acting like movie stars. The diva-ish behavior has become absolutely psychopathic. These people in politics are always performing, always acting. They act as if they're angry with each other about this or that piece of legislation or this or that political bone to pick, but they're really not. They act as if these people are so concerned about the environment and other things, but by far the biggest bit of political theater that these guys put on, their biggest acting performance, is when they act like they actually care about their constituents. That's when they go for the Oscar. And of course the white media encourages this because they long ago figured out how to monetize this kind of thing. And speaking of the white media monetizing political theater, with the Orange Man on his revenge tour, one has to ask where Obama's hiding at right now, or where his buddy Biden's at. With the left corner of the white media recycling their talking points that American democracy is being toppled as we speak, one has to wonder why these former presidents are nowhere to be seen. After all, if the fall of American democracy isn't enough justification for them to come out of hiding, then what is? Well, as it turns out, at least one of these useless con men is planning to get back in front of the cameras, just not the news cameras. Stop me if you've heard this one before. An overrated chump becomes president, then when he's out of office, he goes and gets a talent deal so he can begin his career whoring himself for some white media outlet. You're probably thinking, hey, that's what Barack Obama did when he left office. He and Michelle went out making deals with Netflix and others, right? Yeah, they did. And Biden has done the same. He signed a deal with the talent agency CAA, which I think stands for Creative Artist Agency. You know, frankly, I'm surprised that he didn't sign with William Morris Endeavor instead. And why not? When Biden was vice president, Rahm Emanuel was Obama's chief of staff, which means he was basically Biden's chief of staff too. And as we all know, Rahm Emanuel's brother is Ari Emanuel, the infamous head of Endeavor Agency, which merged with William Morris. So all they have to do is have Rahm call his brother up and make a deal. Now, of course, my question is, what talent does Joe Biden have? And you probably won't be surprised to learn that this isn't even Biden's first rodeo with CAA. He signed with CAA before. He had previously been their client from 2017 to 2020. Nobody talked about that very much, did they? This was during Trump's first term, back when Biden was a retired, useless vice president instead of a retired, useless president. And according to the LA Times, Biden's time as a CAA client was pretty lucrative too. His income had gone from $400,000 a year as vice president to more than $15 million in the 2 years after he left the Obama White House. And of course, when it comes to Washington, corruption, cronyism, and nepotism is rampant, and it's always a family affair. Hunter Biden, the drug addict that Joe Biden pardoned even after he promised that he wouldn't, well, Hunter the junkie is also exploring his media options too. In fact, he's had a documentary crew who have been following him around for years now. I wonder if they got any footage of Hunter's business dealings with Burisma or his getting high in hotel rooms. Now that would be Oscar-worthy in my opinion. And it shouldn't surprise anyone at all that Hunter has a documentary crew following him around. Remember, Nancy Pelosi's daughter is also a so-called filmmaker, and she was running around following her mother all throughout the Capitol with a camera years back, making a so-called documentary about her mom. Just what we didn't ask for. You can watch 2+ hours of Nancy Pelosi prancing like a peacock and being totally useless. That's got Oscar written all over it. Well, as you might know, Nancy Pelosi's daughter, in the course of making this documentary, she just so happened to be there at the same time that Trump and his MAGA army of thugs stormed the Capitol. Pelosi's daughter got plenty of footage of the members of Congress cowering in the bowels of the Capitol building. HBO was who Pelosi's daughter was making this film for. So these politicians are literally trying to make their own reality TV shows, starring themselves. The narcissism is just off the charts. Oh, and just for the record, did you know that former presidents receive a pension? Yeah, that's right. If you become president of the United States, then you automatically receive a pension as soon as you leave office. So even though Barack Obama was only 55 years old at the end of his presidency, he began receiving a nearly $250,000 a year pension immediately upon his leaving office. That money can of course be added to the cash that Netflix gave to him and the corporate speaking engagements that he and his wife get. This is what I mean when I tell you that the connections and associations between the white media and the government, and even law enforcement, are absolutely incestuous. After all, you got the propaganda arm of white supremacy working hand in hand with the administrative arm, that's the politicians. Joe Biden's been putting on a show for 50 plus years, and we in the black community gave it thumbs down. Biden spent his entire life attacking the black community. That piece of trash talked about black people like dogs. He made an absolute career out of being shamelessly racist, with the white media guffawing and making excuses for him every step of the way. And yet we had Negroes telling us we had to vote for Biden, that he was our only hope. Well, Biden's out of the White House now. And you notice that the sky hasn't fallen for black people any more than it had during Trump's first term. Not because Trump is a good guy, he's not, but because both of the major parties are staunchly and adamantly against black people, no matter what the white media may try to brainwash you into thinking. Joe Biden is out of the White House, and you notice that even with the Orange Man's revenge tour in full swing, you don't see him being worried about retribution from the white right. The Democrats had a lot of you thinking that that was the case because they know the fastest way to get people to stop thinking and to start obeying is to make them afraid. And sadly, a lot of black people enjoy being scared. They don't even know why they're scared. They just are. And Joe Biden didn't even need to become president for this white media orgy to begin. Remember, Al Gore also became a cause celeb for a while with his documentary about climate change. They gave him Academy Awards, had him hobnobbing and bumping elbows with Hollywood's biggest stars, and he didn't even become president. Remember? Make no mistake, family. What Biden is trying to do right now is the same as what Obama did when he left office. Biden's trying to write his own page in history. He knows that he's hated and reviled by the public. That's why America decided that they would rather have a felon who tried to overthrow the government back in the White House instead of enduring another 4 years of Biden or Kamala Harris. How the hell do you lose an election to a clown like Trump? Well, you do it by ignoring the base. That's how. And now Biden and his pals are going to try to manufacture some phony baloney narrative. They're going to try to big him up, whitewash his mountain of failures and lies and lack of character. The same way they tried it with Obama and his wife. They tried to make their own political failures seem like merely the result of the complicated times we live in. And just like Obama's forced exile didn't make him show any respect for the black community, so Biden is also going to learn absolutely nothing from his own humiliating defeat by Trump. They'll all recycle the same talking point, that they were good people undone by the coarsening culture, a ravenous media environment, and of course racists in the electorate who were caught up in a political white lash. While there is validity to some of that, the reality is these are also the same voters who voted for Obama twice, and then after voting for Trump, decided to take a chance on Biden. When people vote for you and then just a few years later turn their backs on you, you can't really blame them for your failure to retain office. But of course, that's exactly what they're going to try to do because it can't be their fault. And you'll have the white media companies pushing this lie, and I'm sure that nigga Jim Clyburn and other bootlicks from the CBC will be only too glad to grin like idiots for their close-up and tell the world how great Biden is. That train is never late. Well, I, for one, am sick and tired of hearing about Biden. He said the black community had his back and that he would have ours. Well, in a sense, he kept his word, because our backs are precisely where he put the knife. And so the same white media that made excuses for this racist punk and sung his praises and refused to take him to task is now going to make sure that they line his pockets. After all, white supremacy is the greatest crime in human history, and the best way to continue to incentivize white supremacy is to show that crime pays. Well, if Joe Biden's so eager to show everybody that he has talent, I have a suggestion for what he could do. Start a new career in magic. And his first trick? Disappear. Good day, and be one. I'd like to take a moment to mention some of our contributors. Eric Bailey, Liban Gurhan, Suleiman Alaji, Sabrina Scott, and Corey Monroe. Salute to them and thank you to everyone for listening, liking, and sharing this message. Black empowerment only exists because of you.